morning and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Today we are moving through lesson 67 in A Course in Miracles, and I am going to start, as always, with a review of the preceding lessons. Lesson 35, My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Lesson 36, My mind envelops everything I see. Lesson 37, My holiness blesses the world. Lesson 38, There is nothing my holiness cannot do. Lesson 39, My holiness is my salvation. Lesson 40, I am blessed as a son of God. Lesson 41, God goes with me wherever I go. Lesson 42, God is my strength. Vision is his gift. Lesson 43, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Lesson 44, God is the mind in which I see. Lesson 45, God is the mind with which I think. Lesson 46, God is the love in which I forgive. Lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. Lesson 48, there is nothing to fear. Lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Lesson 50, I am sustained by the love of God. Lesson 61, I am the light of the world. Lesson 62, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Lesson 63, the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. Lesson 64, let me not forget my function. Lesson 65, my only function is the one God gave me. Lesson 66, my happiness and my function are one. Lesson 67, love created me like itself. Oh, I love this. All right, let's dive in. Today's idea is a complete and accurate statement of what you are. This is why you are the light of the world. This is why God appointed you as the world's savior. This is why the Son of God looks to you for his salvation. He is saved by what you are. We will make every effort today to reach this truth about you and to realize fully, if only for a moment, that it is the truth. In a longer practice period, we will think about your reality and its wholly unchanged and unchangeable nature. We will begin by repeating this truth about you and then spend a few minutes adding some relevant thoughts such as holiness created me holy, kindness created me kind, helpfulness created me helpful, perfection created me perfect. Any attribute which is in accord with God as he defines himself is appropriate for use. We are trying today to undo your definition of God and replace it with his own. We are also trying to emphasize that you are part of his definition of himself. After you have gone about over several such related thoughts, try to let all thoughts drop away for a brief preparatory peer interval. Then try to reach past all images and preconceptions about yourself to the truth in you. If love created you like itself, this self must be in you. And somewhere in your mind, it is there for you to find. You may find it necessary to repeat the idea for today from time to time to replace distracting thoughts. You may also find that it is not sufficient and that you need to continue adding other thoughts related to the truth about yourself. Yet perhaps you will succeed in going past that and through the interval of thoughtfulness to the awareness of a blazing light in which you recognize yourself as love created you. Be confident that you will do much today to bring that awareness nearer, whether you feel you have succeeded or not. It will be particularly helpful today to practice the idea for the day as often as you can. You need to hear the truth about yourself as frequently as possible because your mind is preoccupied with false self-images. 4 or 5 times an hour, and perhaps even more, it would be most beneficial to remind yourself that love created you like itself. Hear the truth about yourself in this. Try to realize in the shorter periods that this is not your tiny solitary voice that tells you this. This is the voice of God, reminding you of your Father and of yourself. This is the voice of truth, replacing everything that the ego tells you about yourself with the simple truth about the Son of God. You were created by love like itself. Y'all, it's almost too good to be true. I'm reading this and I'm like, every attribute of God, we get to if we choose, we get to walk in that. We get to walk in love. We get to walk in holiness. We get to walk in purity. We get to walk in kindness. We get to walk in these beautiful, wonderful traits of who God is, and we get to adopt that for ourselves. Pretty much everything that is good about God, because he's our creator and we are the created and we were made like him. He says, let us create man in our own image. We are created in the image of God. So everything that is pure and lovely and good and wholesome about God, we get to walk in. And not just that, here's what's so interesting is that it's not just that we were created in the image of God, it's that he has wanted and allowed for us to be friends of God. I took a time a couple years ago where I just read through some old biblical texts, specifically the first 5 books of the Bible, and it was like very dense. And man, there were just like so many incredible nuggets that really, really spoke to me. And one of those in particular was I just noticed a couple of times throughout where God didn't want there to be obstruction to access him. It was the people who were like, we don't want direct access to God. And so they wanted, in the story, they wanted Moses to be the liaison between them and God because they were afraid of interacting with God directly. Ever since the beginning, God has wanted direct access with us. And we have been the ones that have man-made and fabricated these things that divide us and separate us from him. And then even looking at Abraham, Abraham was a friend of God. And he was hanging out with God and literally listening to God and doing what God wanted. And he had a friendship. And so these things, even, the story of David in the Bible, before him was a king named Saul. And Saul was basically established because God told the people, I want to be your king. And they said, no, we want a physical king. At every point, at every time for connection, people chose to distance themselves rather than pursue a relationship with God. And so this whole conversation, you were created by love like itself, to really believe that we actually have to go to the source to know the source and then to know ourselves. That's how it works in so many ways. It's we were talking about this the other day, that there's almost like 2 identities. There's the identity that God gives us universally, everybody. And then there's the identity that he gives us as the individual based on our personality and who we were uniquely made to be. And so in order for us to identify and understand identity A, we actually need to get to know the source of our creator to understand the created. Who is he and how were we made like him? What are all the beautiful attributes, the love and the joy and the peace? So one, in terms of that identity, God has given us free and total access to himself from the beginning of time. He wanted to be king and we chose not to. He wanted to be in relationship with his people at the very beginning and they said no. And so the question today is, am I willing to have a relationship with God because he wants to have one with us? And then the other part of that is not just from the beginning of time was there these points of connection of God really trying to reach out and solidify that relationship, but also he gave us his spirit. So it's like now the presence of God is dwelling with and among us rather than, us having to, pray to a man in the sky. It's like, no, he's here and he's with us and he's in us, even the fact that he breathed the breath of life into us. That's very intimate. That's very personal. It wasn't just, computer programming. Everyone's obsessed with AI these days, as they should be in so many ways. It's truly a phenomenon. And we're not just robots. We've got the breath and the likeness of God in us. And so therefore, there's this, we talk about intelligences on the Knowing Show. We talk about intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, even artificial intelligence. How does that play a part in our life? But really we focus on the human intelligence, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, which is the main goal for Sundays, is to really dive deep on the spiritual level, and then physical. So if we have the Spirit of God in us and we're housing the presence of God within, then, okay, well then how do I need to take care of my physical body? What am I going to see? What am I going to listen to? What am I going to touch, eat? Like all of those senses are all pathways to effectively housing the presence of God. And so then the question is, okay, well, am I tending to my body like I would something precious and something honored because of what is inside? And here's what's beautiful. Identity A, the identity God gave us, and, kind of like co-creating, coexisting with God, that's precious indeed. And then you look at identity B. Who did he uniquely make me to be? My personality, even my experience. How has my experience played a part in this? That identity of you and me is just as precious. And it really is, because he says it's precious. God looks at you and me and calls us worthy and calls us loved. There's a verse, it actually is so, for me, it's very vulnerable because I didn't view myself as lovable for so long. There's a verse that says, he looks over you, he sings over you and dances over you. And that concept of God literally loving me that much that he would sing and dance over me is like it made me feel sick, because I just never thought of myself that way. And so when we hear these concepts today in society of self-love, it's not the way that people are talking about it, like, oh, just go take a bath. Oh, just abdicate responsibility. No, it's actually like, take better care of yourself. Actually invest more time into cultivating who this precious person is, that's you and me, so that we can love better, so that we can fulfill on being the presence of God to this world, so that we can fulfill on, like, think of our physical body as like it's coming from heaven, and then we're the modality through which our mission is executed. And, that aspect of the identity A and identity B are the amalgamation of you and me. It's important to discuss this because, y'all, I've heard a lot of religious people, kind of like the Pharisees, who are living very, very black and white, very dogmatic, and we're solely focused on identity A. But even in that, it was actually that separation. The fear causes separation. But love, the love of God, really, man, he's like, I want you. I want to be in relationship with you. I want to be in communion with you. I want to be intimate with you. But fear pulls back. And we were even talking about this earlier in this week's Course in Miracles in our morning shows. Ego will actually come in and say, oh, you're not worthy to be the identity that God gives you. Particularly, we were examining the light. You are the light of the world. And ego comes in and says, no. And what that does is that in us not accepting our own identity, it actually separates us not only from the will of God and from God himself over who he says we are, but also from each other, because God says that for every single one of us. And if we're not willing to believe and trust in the truth of the will of God and his literally what he says for us, man, we're going to really miss out on some real opportunity to receive what comes on the other side of our identity. Being in relationship with God, that is what yields peace. That is what yields joy. It's not just, having peace and having joy outside of that. I think you can access it to an extent, but man, the true peace that surpasses understanding, that is what comes from knowing and trusting in, oh God, this is who you say I am. That at the end of the day, I can have peace and rest. I can go to sleep knowing that I'm cared for. I can go to sleep, even though I feel lonely, I can go to sleep knowing I'm not alone. And being alone is very different than loneliness, versus having the spiritual awareness of, like, we talk about emotional awareness, being aware of how we're doing emotionally. Well, being aware spiritually is, okay, God, what is more true than this physical world? What do you say that I am? And spiritual awareness really grounds us when we really are struggling, when it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I can't breathe because of all this pain I'm in, or I feel so lonely because I've lost my partner, or, I've got cut off access for my kids. In those moments of loneliness, we get to experience like a comforting presence of God. And that is the thing that yields peace. So because of that, that's where we really get to operate from both identities. It's identity A, this is who God says that I am. Identity B, this is who he physically and intellectually, like the human intelligence, that's who he made me to be. And that's where we are different. That's where we shine. That's why we need each other, because you and I can't do life completely alone. And that's where, if all of us were only identity A, then we would all look and sound and talk exactly the same, because we're all just mini Christs. It's just like, okay, we're made it, Christ is in us. That's great. And we need to tap into that. But we've also been made very uniquely from each other. And God wants us to know who we are in that regard. And in so doing, man, that's how we form the human to human connection. The identity B is really what connects us to God in so many ways. And identity A is really what connects us to God. And identity B is what connects us to the world around us. But because, and this is what I was getting at earlier, there's so many folks who I know in the religious setting, I guess you could say, who are only tapping into identity A. And therefore, they're cutting themselves off from everybody else around them because they don't actually know who they are. They don't know how to exist in community. They don't know how to kind of like exist in the world. My dad said this once years ago, and he said, so heavenly minded of no earthly good. And I was like, oh, that's a word. And, we've all experienced that, where you go into a church and it's just like they're so inwardly focused with each other that they're not going out and loving. Jesus hung out with the people that the Pharisees and the religious people were horrified by. But I kind of think that that's how we're supposed to be. If we're supposed to live like Jesus, and because he's in us, all right, then let's go hang out with the people that otherwise wouldn't normally be loved on. And what a high calling, what a beautiful, beautiful thing, for each one of us that is struggling with loneliness. We have this glorious mission being handed out to us and saying, hey, will you come and partner with me? Will you come and partner in loving those who are lonely, loving those who are lost, loving those who are in grief and in pain? Each one of us has the opportunity to stand up and kind of roll our shoulders back and walk in this identity. Identity A, who does God say I am? Identity B, who is I made to be? And it's like this concept of knowing who you are and whose you are. And once we get that, man, it's like we're unstoppable. It doesn't mean that we won't have bad days. It doesn't mean that we won't struggle, but y'all, there's a fundamental transformation internally that takes place when we know both of those truths. So let me go ahead and jump here into the chat. Good morning, my friends. Thank you so much for joining. It's International Women's Day. I forgot. Explorer. First, good to see you. It's been a little while. But yeah, let's go. Happy International Women's Day. Sai, good morning. He says, did you sleep well? I did, and it felt so short. I think it's spring forward. All right, just looking through here. Hold on, I'm going to scroll in. All right. Oh, MKL Scary says, I really need God's love. I'm hopeless. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here because that love is so freely offered. It really, really is. And I think sometimes, when we think about receiving is such a vulnerable thing for me. You know how I said that verse, he sings over me and dances over me? That verse is like really, really vulnerable for me personally, just because it means that I need to sit in a posture of receiving love and receiving the kindness that God is willing to extend to me and the love that he's willing to extend to me. But it's really vulnerable to receive love. And y'all, if we struggle to receive human love, we're probably going to struggle to receive God's love. And if we're not extending love to ourselves, it's going to be really hard to receive God's love. It's not like we can be one way vertically and another way horizontally. There's even this verse that says, you shall, he who does not love his brother does not have the love of God in him. So it's like, okay, physically, horizontally, when I look to the right and to the left, and when I look at the people around me, am I really actually able to love them? Because if I don't, I can't really love God. It goes both ways. That's why I love the vertical alignment concept, but we have to integrate horizontally. So for everyone who's like, it's easier for me to be alone, it's easier for me to do life alone, I just kind of like shut out everybody else. That's usually an indicator of what's going on vertically for us, because again, the external world so often is a mirror. Wayne, I saw you post this really insightful comment yesterday on yesterday's video where you were effectively referencing the fact that our words and what's going on in the external is really like, imagine you got a mirror held up for you, and what's going on outside out there really shows us what's going on in here. Shaquille, good to see you. Real MTA or MT ad B addict. Good to see you. Y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and put y'all on timeout for those of you who are being inappropriate. HK musician. We're gonna go ahead and put you on timeout. I'm so glad you're here, but we just don't talk like that. So feel free to hang out and come and join us a little bit later. Hank, same. Yeah, we just don't talk like that, but so glad you guys are here. Jake, I love this. Whenever I feel lonely, I get down on my knees and let the Spirit of God enter me. That's so beautiful. And so then honestly, to your point, Jake, it's like, how do we operate at the point where we don't ever let the Spirit of God leave us? How do we actually maintain that it's there? My goal, y'all, and this is actually possible. My goal is that I'm not getting to the point of empty. My goal is that I'm constantly refilling my cup to the point of overflow so that I can give to everybody else my overflow, and that my cup is always full. I haven't done a good job of that the last 2 weeks. I have let my cup run, not completely dry, but I've been depleted. And, other people, like, I've snapped a couple of times, and I don't normally snap because I'm able to keep my cup full. And so it's like, man, how do we make it so that I am coexisting and co-creating with God, like, throughout life, and I navigate with him? And y'all, my mornings are really, like, I don't use this word lightly, they're sacred. Our mornings are sacred. It is our time. Like, even this morning, my alarm went off, 50 minutes before the show so that I could get aligned before doing so. And I'm going to go keep getting aligned after this, because I want to make sure that my cup is full to the point of overflowing, so that when I hop on these shows, so that when I'm in client meetings, so that when I'm talking to my family, I've got something, not even just something to give, but I've got so much extra, so that if if a car cuts me off, it's like those moments are the times where we see, like, what's inside. The other day, I knocked over my cup of coffee and I saw what was inside. And I saw, like, oh, dang, like, I actually really need to go and take care of me. And we don't want to wait to that point. The goal is that we're constantly being proactive to recharge and refuel effectively. Benny, good to see you. Exactly. Knowingly, trusting, having faith, spiritual awareness, being grounded, and giving control to Jesus in his holy name. Novak, I'm going to go ahead and put you on timeout, but thank you for joining. Just looking down. Great hillbilly, or real hillbilly, good to see you. Matt Acoustic, good morning. Virgo, I'm glad you're here. I'm just looking through the chat here. There's a lot of interesting comments. Living in Kerala says, this glorious mission you talk of never happens much by Christians. I think it rarely happens with anybody, to be honest with you. I think, so for those of you who are just joining, we're talking about the fact that when we have real clarity around whose we are, who does God say that we are, who do we belong to, what is more true than anything in this physical world, along with who has he created me uniquely to be. So whose we are and who we are. That allows for us to really, truly embark on this, like, glorious mission. And I think of it because it's like coming from heaven down into earth. Or not even coming from heaven. I mean, honestly, God or Jesus even said, like, the kingdom of heaven is now. is here, and the kingdom of heaven, we get to bring the kingdom of heaven into this physical world. So I'm not saying that it's like far enough away and not able to be now, but we get to bring it like by living in accordance with who God made us to be, being aware of whose we are, and knowing our identity as he says it and as he uniquely created us to be. Therein, the kingdom of heaven is now. It activates, and we get to bring that presence. And you're right. I think that very few people actually live that way. This is why, honestly, there's like, this feels like my mission in so many ways, because it's reminding ourselves, it's waking up to who God says we are. And so as we're having this conversation tonight or this morning, it's like, okay, who did he uniquely make me to be versus what are like those universal truths that coexist no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what's going on in my life. And that is also true for everyone that I know and love. And reminding ourselves, like my darling said this to me one time. I said, honestly, I think I cursed, and I don't normally curse. And he just looked at me. He's like, that doesn't sound like you. And he's reminding me who God says that I am and who I want to be too, because this is what's so cool is that when we act out of alignment in a moment, we get to call ourselves higher back to that standard of who God says we are, who he made us to be, and who do I even want to be in the first place. That's where it's like aligning every part of us. It's not just spiritually who God says that I am, but emotionally, I want to be that person too. Intellectually, I want to be that person. Intention, what intention really means, if you look at the etymology of the word intention, it means every factal of you is being brought into alignment to pursue something emotionally, physically, spiritually. Every part of you is in alignment towards a pursuit, towards a goal. So me just knowing spiritually this is who God says that I am keeps only my spiritual intelligence in play in pursuit of, okay, this is who God says that I am, and this is, who he made me to be. But now when I start realizing, okay, he made me to be this person that really loves to have fun, that loves beauty. Now I'm engaging kind of my physical world and my physical body. Now when I think about, okay, well, I want to be that person. Okay, emotionally, now I have a desire for that. And then intellectually, I actually have to be thinking about it and reminding myself of what's true. I have a sign on my wall of who I am. I am, and insert the blank, and I've got my goals there of who I am, who God says I am, and who I want to be. Now, every part of me is activated and engaged towards the pursuit of who God says that I am and who I now want to be. And now I am full-bodied in the pursuit of the truth and in the pursuit of this mission. Amandel, good to see you. Thanks for joining. And Gorab, good to see you. Cactus, Proco, good to see you. How do I get out of my survival mode of isolation bubble? Well, first, if you're in that isolation bubble out of survival, then you're there for a reason. And there's something about like really being gentle with yourself. I've been in survival mode, Proco, and it's real. Like after you've felt betrayed by somebody, your future is ripped out under you, when you've got so much grief, you really are in survival mode. And your body, here's the thing, our bodies, when we think of survival mode, it's going to like flight, fight, fear, or fawn. And either one of those, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And any one of those, I think of them as like the 4 Fs. That's our nervous system talking. And so that's where that's kind of like physical intelligence, right? That's when we awaken the spiritual intelligence, the emotional intelligence, and even intellectual intelligence, so that we're not just purely acting out of the physical, but now we're bringing in these other aspects that can help kind of calm the body and bring the body to a point of, think of it as like bringing our body to a point of stasis, to a point of peace. And then when it's at a point of peace, so we kind of have to first tend to that survival aspect. Because you said, how do I get out of my survival mode of the isolation bubble? If we're in survival mode, it's going to be really, really hard to introduce something new. So the goal would be to bring peace to your body. And there's a couple of different ways to do that. And I would actually encourage you to do this. If you go to verticalalignment.com, I've got 21 days of vertical alignments. And that's my practice every single morning. Not necessarily those ones, but I created those on my birthday actually last year. And I think that could be really helpful to you to just bring peace back into your body. You go through literally like taking deep breaths and journaling and just like, how am I doing? Bringing the peace inward and really being like, all right, God, I want to remember what's more true than here in this moment. And then from there, I would really, really encourage you. One, you're kind of already doing it, right? Even just by coming on here and engaging with folks in the chat. I would really encourage you, like, is there a studio? Like we were talking last night about jujitsu. Yesterday I went paintballing. It was so much fun. What are the things that you can start doing in community for the purpose of really either serving, so you can go and actually literally serve. I've gone to a number of soup kitchens and, making meals for people, and that just reorients you to serve. Like, take your focus off yourself. There's something really, really helpful in that process, remembering it's not just about you and me, and really serve. But then also physical exertion and being in community that way. I would encourage either one of those. Really, really helpful. Get your body moving. I felt that yesterday. I was like, man, I need to be more active. I need to be moving more. Living in Kerala. No, those are not fake nails. Castle XX. Good morning, Brian. Brian, I'm going to go ahead and just put you on timeout. Guys, I'm just going to put you on timeout if you're talking inappropriately here. We're going to start our community soon. But for now, just to protect the integrity of the chat and people who are actually wanting to come on here to grow and just experience, we're actually really, truly grow. And that doesn't mean that we all agree. That's actually not the goal. But if people are being on here and being dirty or just kind of being foolish, I'm going to go ahead and put you on timeout. One Inch Wonder. I just like us when everybody's kind of on the same page. Whether you're having individual chats, that's totally fine. But I really appreciate if people are being respectful. Always Aramis, good morning. Yeah, look, Beach War says, go outside and meet people. I love that. You know what's funny? It feels a little less lonely. I've started asking people what their name is at the coffee shop and even the waiter. And first, it really lights them up. But it's an instant connection. So even if it's just you're getting a cup of coffee, ask the person's name. I really, really love that. And I thank you for that advice, Beach War. That's so good. Milton, hello from London. Good to see you. The Fake Scientist, Leo, good morning. High Desert Animal Farm, good morning. Real, and I already said good morning to you, but hello. I'm Lloyd from Lloyd's of London. Viking Lloyd, I'm so glad you're here. It's been a little while. Hyper Slob, good morning. Benny, I have a sign on my door too, open for the world, that says, I am the child of the Most High, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's beautiful. All right, just scrolling down. Darlie. Interesting. I think every person has some form of 7 deadly sins in them. I'm 60% sloth, 39% envy, 1% lust. What's yours? Darlie, it's funny. I don't camp out and meditate on where I'm messing up. It's like, I'm super aware of where I need to grow. Like, for example, one of the things that I really need to grow in is, and this isn't a sin, but one of the things that I really need to grow in is doing what I say I'm going to do right away. And that's a form of excellence and discipline that I just need to master. So I'm very aware of where I need to grow. And at the same time, I want to focus on the truth more than the illusion of what I'm walking in right now, of like, why would I fixate on what I'm doing wrong rather than fixating on my target and fixating on who God says that I am and on God himself. So I don't love focusing on that, but I like your percentage breakdown. And also I think that maybe we're tempted towards something, but that's not who we are. And so to really focus on it to that extent, but that's my opinion. NKL Scary says, what's vertical alignment? I don't know what that is. So the way that when I say vertical alignment, there's two forms of it. One is the principle of vertical alignment. The principle of vertical alignment is bringing my emotions, my mind, my physical body, my behaviors, my beliefs, every part of me. It's like bringing it into alignment under the hierarchy of who am I? Who does God say that I am? Who do I want to be? And ultimately at the pinnacle of that is, okay, what is the truth that God says? So who I want to be is important, again, because that actually is what propels intentional living. We actually have to garner and like rally our desires. We need to feel compelled and propelled towards something. And one of the most dangerous feelings is apathy, to just not want to do anything. That's really, really dangerous for the human spirit. So who do I want to be? I actually really need to get clear on that, because that can bring the motivation. And ultimately, at the end of the day, at the hierarchy of that is who God says that I am. And then the practice of vertical alignment is every morning I really take time to bring all of that into submission under the hierarchy of who do I want to be, and who does God say that I am? And so that it can look like closing my eyes and meditating. It can look like just praying. It can look like reading, whether it's reading another book or reading the Bible, journaling, listening to God. Each one of those, and even walking, just being outside and listening and just wandering, literally like wondering at creation and like how amazing it is, like being filled with wonder. I hope that made sense. John C, hello. I'm going to go ahead and put you on timeout. Honby, I think, too. Leo says, oh, your body is nothing. It is going to return to dust and ashes. Man, I really don't. I think that our bodies are really precious. I actually think that it's that concept of God no longer lives in a temple, physical temple. He lives in you and me, but we're a physical temple. And so we're supposed to, not just supposed to, but we get to tend to our physical body. Man, imagine if we all really honored this physical body, what we would eat, how we would spend our time, how we would also engage in intimacy with each other, if we were to actually view the other person as something and someone sacred. I think we could use a lot more of that, in my opinion. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining tonight, or this morning. Siva, good to see you. Thank you, Jack. Nick. Proco. I'll go ahead and answer your question before we jump off. Why am I feeling such a weight on my heart? How do I be more lighthearted? Exercising and being in communion with nature and people helps, but it is the same heaviness reappears after distraction. Then I would lean into the heaviness, Proco, and I'd be curious what other people have to offer here, but I think so long as the goal isn't distraction. The goal is actually, I needed to, the book by Peter Levine talks about the trauma cycle, which is effectively, we need to complete the trauma cycle that we might be stuck in order for us to be free from it. So when my brother-in-law was killed, for 6 years, I never remembered the day. I never thought about it. I never let myself go back. And only after literally going back to that moment, and I just wept and wept and wept and wept, I effectively completed the trauma cycle in my body. My body was holding on to these emotions and to this memory. And there's something about allowing our body to really move through the pain of the loss. And then the other side of that, and Proco, I don't know what your experience is particularly, but I just know, if we have lost somebody, physically they've passed or just been betrayed by somebody, it takes time. It takes time to heal from that. And it took me a lot of work. Like what I did was I allowed for my pain to be a pathway into the past, heal from the past, because the pain in the present so often is a mirror for what we're struggling with from the past and what we need to heal from the past. All right, just scrolling in the chat here. There's a dear friend that I need to put on timeout because it's getting inappropriate. Martin, I'm putting you on timeout, my friend. Morgan says, how did he die? He was killed by a drunk driver, and they both died instantly. And he and my sister had a 3-week-old baby girl, so it was the most devastating thing. High Desert says, were you close with your brother-in-law? Yeah, he actually came into our family when I was 12. My youngest sister was 6. The other one was 8. And I just, my oldest sister, though, she was 16 when they met, 17 when they met. And I was so close with her. And so they both just like took me under their wing. And he was exceptional. It's like that Billy Joel song, that the good always die young. That's how it felt in so many ways. He just had like the biggest aspirations and loved people so well, and was literally, it's like he understood life and really mastered it. But then for him to die at 26, it's just like, it's so devastating. And also I learned so much from him. So I'm trying to honor him with how I live. Scrolling down. High Desert Animal says weeping. Yeah, there's a difference between weeping and crying. If you don't know what it is, then you probably have never wept. But the weeping, the way that I would define it, is like, it's your whole body is engaged in the act. It's not just like tears coming out of your eyes. It's like your body is engaged. Ricky says, where are you from? I'm from Maryland. That's where I grew up. Just scrolling down. Thank you, Benny. Thank you for being encouraging. Jay Maya says, do you drink coffee or tea? I drink both. I love both. Morgan says, I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. All right, y'all. Thank you, Chriso. Thank you so much. I'm grateful. No, the baby did not, thankfully. He says, did the 3-week-old baby die? No, she was at home with her mama. And so she and her mom actually moved in with us. And I got to help raise the sweet little baby for 2.5 years. And now she's 11. So it's been a while. And the date of his anniversary of his death is March 5th, or I'm sorry, October 5th. So no, he didn't die this month, but frankly, he's just such an example to me of who I want to be in so many ways and how he lived. So I feel inspired in that regard. All right, y'all, I'm going to jump off. I will be back online tonight for the Knowing Show at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So I will be seeing you then. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. I'm going to go take my coffee. It's actually decaf though. And no, I don't think caffeine's in. I don't think so. I'm going to go take my coffee and go sit in the other room and get aligned more. So have a wonderful Sunday, y'all. This is such a wonderful day. It's like just before the week starts. This is such a wonderful day and time to just examine, how am I living? How am I doing? How am I loving? And am I on the mission? Just going back to today's lesson as a reminder. Let me see where I put it. Today's lesson. Here we go. Love created me like itself. Y'all, we were created by God for community, for love, for each other, to bring hope to this world. And so I hope today that we can live a little bit more like it. I'll talk to you soon, friends.